this figure, you cannot meet that goal with this figure, then before we make our final deliberations, I would ask that you provide that information for us.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, line 314, the overtime administrative assistant. This is for overtime during special events. Is this for a administrative police officer, or is this for a civilian?
This is actually the overtime assistant. That would be for Ms. Lewandowski. That would not be for the officer.
Okay, and what would Ms. Lewandowski have to do on, for instance, the light parade, the East Lyme?
Those are extra hours, and we keep our police station open to the public during those hours because we have such a big force on the street that we're covering her extra hours in this shift, in this line here. It's probably the right thing to do management-wise, to keep the building open and to keep the force fully operational, and that's where that comes from. That's that extra. And there's two. And we kind of wanted to show that there is a cost to some of these events that we put on, that they're not put on for free. And the police, it's not just the administrative cost. We also put all the police on the street in an overtime typically, and that's a cost that's borne by the town and the citizens.
Yes, and usually there's, during one of these events, there's always a group or two that do come up front of the department, and obviously we can't leave that unmanned in a police station with no police personnel, and she would be the one that usually covers that up front area.
Thank you. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Siri?
No, I'm
Mrs.
All set.
Cheeseman?
I notice with regard to the supplies, it mentions that the state bid on ammunition had expired.
Under training supplies?
Yeah. We talked about the increase in the cost of ammunition. Is the state have any intention to rebid this?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We haven't received any of the
Any
paperwork yet. Normally what occurs is I will get, it's usually just one sheet of paper like this that comes down with the amount that the state has bid for and can accept. So normally, yes, that's where we would go.
But in the interim, where obviously the town is required to just buy ammunition as we can get it.
Correct.
Okay. And I just noting on that training line, so 2015 actual expense was that 33,171.
Correct. A year ago.
Right.
Yes.
So was the increase due to anticipated greater training?
Yes, the increase, again, was hopefully to, take care of some of those OSHA standard trainings that we have not been able to do. It's very hard when, we have to get, like, a certain amount of hours in for firearms training, the taser training. That's the taser in itself is a 4-hour block. There's each one of these individual things, take a certain amount of hours in order for the people to get the credit for it. So that's where the increase does come in.
Okay, with something like the OSHA training, is this something where you go off-site? Does someone
No,
come here?
majority of them
are
we
they
can-
webinars? I mean, every time I get another email, it's somebody offering a webinar on
Right.
something.
The incident command stuff was a webinar type scenario, but hazmat, bloodborne pathogens, things of that nature, those are held on site. Actually, as a matter of fact, Officer Lewandowski is a certified instructor for the bloodborne pathogens, so that is a training that we try to jam handcuffing, baton, bloodborne pathogens, a bunch of these courses into a 4-hour block because usually we're constrained with the finances to get it done. So yes, some of these things we can absolutely do on site.
And again, getting back to the first selectman's point, any area where if we combine training with other towns, I presume, where it would reduce our cost and still result in effective training, we're pursuing those possibilities.
Absolutely. So if we bring an outside instructor and they charge per officer, us being the host town, they do cut us the break for being the host town. Say if we put in 4 officers for that particular class and it was $200 per officer, they may not charge us anything or a nominal fee of,
And we'll
say,
tell Waterford and
$100.
New London and whatever.
Correct.
Come here, we're offering this training and.
Right. We go through the Law Enforcement Council, so we use Tina Main. We would put the training post out to her, and she would disseminate it to all the other departments that do belong to that.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Dan?
Yes, thank you. Hi.
Mr. Cunningham?
I have a question on the line 513, foot patrol and parade duty. And that went up a little bit, that went up about $2,000, 8.7%. And that also includes the foot patrols that are going to be relating to the Amtrak Beach and Cheney Park, the additional patrols that are going to be.
That is correct, yes.
Correct.
And does that seem adequate, given it really seems like this coming season, we're going to see a lot more activity down on that beach as it's becoming more popular. Is that projection large enough, do you think?
I honestly, I think that's only solely based off of really just a salary increase. I don't think that's, adding a dedicated body down there. And you're absolutely correct. We are going to see, there's so many people that do come to visit. They know that boardwalk is projected to be open. So having that mile-long beach and with the amount of people and activity that's going to go down there, that we would like to have that officer dedicated down there for that. If we added a dedicated body, I think you would see that go up. This is, I think, basically just projected off what we've done in the past as far as the foot patrol goes.
But activity there could impact, that's one of the line items that certainly would be impacted by increased activity at those, at the beach.
I could foresee that absolutely happening. We have, medical calls down there, so usually, we're grateful to have Niantic Fire right here. They have a gator that has a capability with a, stretcher on it. But it does, it's, if they're tied up in another call, the first response down there is going to be that foot officer, depending on the time of day, making that call and being the first responder on scene.
And then a related question then would be, line 515, the overtime boat duty. Do you think that the activity on the beach would affect the demand on the police boat, or would that be minimal to the?
I think the impact for that on the beach would be fairly minimal. The one thing we do have is that jet ski, which we got off the grant, and I can personally tell you over the past 2 summers, I've saved 4 separate people that otherwise were on kayaks that got overloaded, and I just happened to come across them because with that vehicle I can get closer to shore and go patrol the swim areas and around there. That's a great asset. So when that is out on the water, they can be the ones, especially out here because of the rockiness, get close in and not having as much draft on the quick response. And it very quick to get out and deploy.
And then one other question along the same line. In the notes, it shows that there was a new boat in 2012, a new police boat with Waterford that was from that federal grant. Has that newer police boat increased the efficiency of the police force on the water, do you think? Does that help a little bit in controlling the budget?
I believe it does, absolutely. Going in, excuse me, in conjunction with Waterford, because basically how it's manned is 1 week we provide a captain, they provide a first mate, then we switch roles the following week. Having that out there and splitting that cost, I think lessens the burden on both the towns per se. And absolutely, it's out there, for an 8-hour shift and visible and right out in the river where, we've had enough people complaining of speeders through the channel, reckless use of say, kids on the personal watercrafts, things of that nature. So
Right.
yes.
And I want to make another reference to the training budget, line 517. And you may not be the one to ask this question, but I just want to throw it out there. Whether or not the adequate training has an effect on our liability policy, there may be someone else who want to ask that question to down the road. Adequate training, of course, this past year we've seen a lot in the news about the police forces being sued, and I think adequate training is one of the issues that they will look at. So I want to be sure that we study that line.
Right, and how I would respond to you, sir, is it all boils down to liability. Jimmy, also Lewandowski, myself being the 2 main training officers at the police department, that is our chief complaint. It's the liability. We're not getting the hours to take care of it.
Thank you.
I just have one more quick question.
Let me just follow up on that comment. Last year, you spent $33,000 in training. The force did. We're increasing it $10,000 this year. This proposal, would that be enough? That's going to be an increase in training from where we were.
Right, and I can tell you, and honestly, that number for last year would have been more than 33,000. We lost the Yale range, firing range, so we have come up with a temporary agreement with Niantic Sportsman's Club, and because that is, a membership-based business per se, we can't just go to them and say, hey, can you shut your range down, put a note up, and nobody can use Niantic range because the police department now has exclusive access. We lost a great asset by losing the Yale range up there because we could basically go up there at any time. I know the caretaker of it either got too old or passed away. His son took it over and then came down with a list of requests that just were not feasible for us. I don't know where the disconnect came. I believe, especially for the town and for a range like that we should have kept fighting for it.
Right.
But I don't know. That was out of my hands. I don't know where that went or where it ended up. But I think that was definitely so had we done it because we had a loss of hours, we were able in the last quarter, we'll say, in a football game, get those at least the minimum standards in for firearm qualification for these officers at Niantic Sportsman's Club. But again, that's going to be a continuous challenge to us. We jump on board, use Waterford's range, which is right next to their Public Works Department, and well, who do you think complains about that? All the personnel that are literally less than a football field away, working at their desk every time they hear 20 rounds at one time going off.
Right.
What is the facility on Route 85 going to Salem?
Academy?
The academy, we had Officer Lewandowski contacted them. There was going to be a fee with that. I would have to research that with him, get back to you on what the fee would be as far as time frame goes. But one of the things that we are required to do is do a nighttime shoot, and we haven't been able. We don't have the facility or place to do that, and that is one of the post requirements.
Yeah.
So I would have to get back to you on that as far as what the fee would
What
be.
about Stone's Ranch?
They do not have any live fire ranges out there.
They don't fire out there. They go to East Haven,
I
or is it
believe
East
somewhere
Haven?
down that way. Yes.
That's where the is that the state police facility?
No,
No,
state,
that's a National Guard facility.
yeah, state police is
State
Simsbury.
police is using National Guard actually temporarily or something like that. But
I
was-
just have
was-
one last question. Body cameras. You keep one keeps reading about them. Other towns. Is this something I know the cost. Not even so much the body cameras, but the storage of the
That's-
video afterwards is the real
That's the
issue.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have our in-car cameras, the arbitrator system. Again, that's where I just discussed this $4,000 service contract. The system went down, so we were without the car cameras for a considerable amount of time. The vendor that was close to us is now gone, so the only person we have is one body to come up from New Jersey to help us get this. We were down some funding. We got that funding last year. We do have the operational systems working, but the new cars are not operational. It's exclusive to Panasonic. They will not give anybody the ability to activate that software. They need to have a representative up here to do that. With that being said, we do carry, it's close to I guess we'll call it a cigarette pack size microphone that the officer does wear on them. So when they are out of the car, at least it's verbally being
So
recorded.
you're getting the audio.
You're getting at least the audio.
Okay,
Thank you.
and that's where we're at right
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one additional question. We don't have a revenue sheet yet. Are you anticipating any grants coming in? Are there, I know
Yes,
at one point we were able to get some grant money for the vests. Anything like that coming down the pike?
The grant money for the vest that Officer or Sergeant Hallbauer used to apply for, I believe that avenue has dried up
It's
per
gone.
se, so
Yeah.
that money is no longer available.
Right. But we do have grant money coming in for the DUI
Yeah, the
grant.
DUI grant,
annual.
the high-risk rural road enforcement grant, which I also
Yes.
get about $3,600 in that to purchase. I've been able the last 2 years purchase 2 lasers with each time we've gotten that grant.
Right.
So that's added, that's been a savings to the town because that's been 100% reimbursement. And of course, the click it or ticket grants.
Right. And that will be distributed. Is that tonight? We're distributing the revenue? So you'll get that later on tonight, Mrs. Hardy, and that's well
Okay.
documented in the revenue funds.
Just
Thank
to,
you.
Just to follow up,
Yep.
do I understand that the cameras are not working on the new cars?
As of this point, I spoke with Officer Rowland, who I met in the parking lot at the PD just prior to coming here. He was out. We have a brand new SUV sitting out the town garage that is not being released because the camera is not operational.
Are we in need of an upgrade for the camera systems on the vehicles, or is it just a matter? Is it a funding issue? Is it a resource issue that we can't get someone?
It's a vendor issue. The system that's in that new SUV, actually the car I'm driving right now, car labeled 100, is a newer car, has 10,000 miles. My vehicle and 105 and 100, which is another car, are the brand new high definition versions of the arbitrator system. So those are, as far as what they offer, that vendor offers, those are the top of the line products right now. It's really just getting a vendor up here to get our equipment operational. Because technically, we should be able to pull into the police department, and as soon as that car pulls into PD, which when it was originally functioning, it automatically linked to the building and would start uploading any video that was created during that time. Because the officers don't have access to the locked SD cards that are in the car. Obviously, for evidentiary and liability issues.
Yeah.
That falls on the supervisor. So when those aren't uploading, I have to make sure that a supervisor is, say, with Officer Rowland, who basically is our in-house IT guy, make sure there's no, no foul play per se with the SD cards. That has been supervised from its extraction of the vehicle to being inputted into the what we call the back-end system that uploads or downloads all that video.
So I hate for you guys to be at the mercy of a vendor.
Right.
If that becomes a problem, then is it worth looking into alternatives with better support?
I only had a couple more minutes to speak with Officer Rowland prior to coming here, because I really wanted to follow up with him. He deals with this almost on a daily basis, and that was going to be my question was, this is the time for me to go ask. So
Yeah.
if this vendor is not working out for us, is there somewhere else we can go? Someone closer that is willing to, whether it's Panasonic will send someone here, or do we go with a whole different system altogether? Because
Right.
those vendors
That's-
basically have backed out of the state, so we have no local representation to help the department out.
All right, if we get some follow-up on that, I want to make sure you guys have the support you need from the vendors if we have to do something else.
Sergeant Masick also has in his possession something he's going to pass out tonight, which is what if scenario. And I think it's for your books, and maybe we can schedule another session with the police because, as you can see, I have departments lining up tonight. But this would be if we go independent. And it's probably something you should go home and study and also create some questions on. I applaud the 7 sergeants who have done yeoman's work putting a study together of what happens if we do go independent. What are the costs? What happens to our to the costs? Are we cost neutral? Does it cost more to go independent, less? What do we do? They're doing a whole lot of work. They're working with Ledyard. Incidentally, our new resident state trooper who was introduced tonight at the podium for the first time. Congratulations on that. Welcome to East Lyme. Resident State Trooper McDermott comes from Ledyard, which is a town that just flipped over. So he has the habit of visiting towns, and then they all run for the hills and go independent. So he's like the grim reaper of the
Yeah.
Resident State Trooper system. So,
And welcome.
But thank you, and actually, Sergeant McDermott comes in with humility and says, how can we help you? And whatever it's going to take to be a part of your system. And if you choose to go independent, if you're going down this path, I'll give you my expert knowledge of the process. And he's been helpful already, only a couple weeks on the job, 10 days on the job. So why don't you go ahead and pass that out? We are running long on time already, and I think it would be probably a good exercise to have you scheduled to come back in. We can talk about the what-if scenarios. What if halfway through our budget year we choose to flick the switch to an independent force? As you can see, there are many IT issues, as you've identified, Mr. Salerno, that a chief working for the town on behalf of his troop would be able to kind of command. All right, I have sergeants running in different directions, handling different issues. By the way, when it rains, I have one sergeant running around with a bucket collecting all the rainwater that comes into the building, and we're working on that. So that's you've identified one of the reasons why at this point with 24 paid officers/constables on our force, we have kind of outgrown the resident state trooper system, without a doubt. And there's not too many people that wouldn't doubt that or deny that. The path to going independent is not a rocky one. It doesn't have to be. We have paid professionals that are already policing our streets and know them well and have already done this work. It's a question of the leadership at the top. It's a question of changing the way we do business a little bit at the top, and it's a question of hiring somebody and appointing probably at least initially the Board of Selectmen as the police commission, and moving forward and developing a police force. Do you want to hand out the budget? Do
Absolutely.
you think it stands?
If I could take literally give me 20 seconds, I
Yeah.
can just explain what they're getting.
Sure.
And then, so basically what I've done, folks, is I've taken the actual budget you have in front of you, just changed some terminology and some numbers on there. Page 2 will be, or sorry, page 3 is just a few bullet points. We've actually done a lot of work, so if you have questions, by all means, put them together. We may already have the answer, but I just want to put a few top bullet points on here. And again, kind of the explanatory would be the last page for chief, line 115. So
This gets us started in at least thinking that direction. We can collect our thoughts and have another conversation budget-wise. And then at some point, we'll schedule an agenda item to have a discussion about what it's going to take. And I'll have our town attorney here to give a presentation, as well as a couple of our sergeants, and maybe even a visitor from Ledyard or even Montville, who are going through the process right now, who have very similar sized forces. And of course, Sergeant McDermott will always be invited to be here. It's a sergeant, right? I don't know how to read the stripes. Not good at that. Basic, you did a great job.
thank you.
You really did. You represented your force with great professionalism tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Both.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We have the Niantic Fire Department coming up next. That would be Chief McDonald, right? Next victim. So Chief John McDonald, thank you on behalf of a grateful town of doing all that you do. We have had plenty of discussions over the year about where you are and where you're going, and we have even talked to this commission about what you and Chief Lewandowski and I had discussed about an independent fire study on looking at the whole picture, and that will be coming in the coming months as we finalize the company we're going to use and go forward with that. In the meantime, you have a budget that starts on July 1st, 2016 and goes for 12 months. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're proposing?
The only increases that we proposed this year was the overtime, $5,000 in overtime, and the vehicle maintenance account, we increased that by $5,000. We have to buy tires. Sorry. But anyway, we need tires for the engine. And We had to replace one a while back, and boy, I couldn't believe the price of it. So anyway, so those babies are expensive. The rest of it, uniforms went up $400. That's contractual agreement that was made with the town, and everything else stayed status quo. So we tried to keep it down as much as we could.
Of course, of course.
If I didn't have to buy tires, it would look a lot better.
We appreciate you being straightforward. We'll start with Mr. Cunningham and work our way across, and if there are any questions or anything, any stones to turn.
Well, on the vehicle maintenance, you mentioned the tires.
No, sorry.
I'm sorry. Have there been any efforts to, we talk about pooling, purchasing with other communities and trying to accomplish that? Is that one of the areas that we might be able to get some price concessions if,
As far as I know, we use the same vendor that the town uses, that the highway department uses.
Yeah, the highway department actually does all the work on these. on
so it's
these
the highway
situations,
department
so-
that actually,
No,
Yeah.
we have, I think it's Pete's Tire Barn comes out.
Yeah.
Pete's or Oasis, one of the two. We've used them both in the past, and I'm fortunate Jimmy
Could you get on
Barone is-
microphone too? Just make sure you're right on the microphone.
I'm fortunate Jimmy Barone, one of my assistant chiefs, is pretty up on tires and trucks and everything, and he's a wealth of knowledge for that for me, and he actually goes out and beats up the vendors for us so we can get the best price. If you don't like what one of them gives, he calls the other one, and so. We beat them up before we come in here.
okay, and then
Before we beat you up.
Yeah.
and I see that you were able to affect some savings in miscellaneous equipment. That went down 16%.
Yeah, we saved about $1,000 on that. This year we have to replace a meter. And a couple other things. Last year we bought a lot of fire hose, so that, that's taken care of.
Great. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Cheeseman.
No, I have no questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Siri.
Chief, the only one I had was about hoses. You just answered that, and we had some Scott Air Packs. I know we've taken care of all that, so you have no concerns in those areas and so forth?
No, all our Scott Air Packs are brand new.
Capital, right?
Yeah.
And they go through the capital
They go through
Yes,
capital
they're
too, right?
improvement, okay.
You're right.
We got a
Acquisition
couple more years
program,
to pay on those?
several
Is that
years.
correct? 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had.
Mrs. Hardy?
Question on fuel. Your fuel line item, that couldn't be your fuel for the trucks, right?
No, the ambulance buys all the diesel fuel.
Okay.
East Lyme Ambulance pays for the diesel fuel for all the apparatus.
Because it says, okay, do you have so it's just for propane for the building?
Propane for the buildings, fuel for my car, fuel for the Dodge Power Wagon, our brush truck.
Okay,
Miscellaneous fuel for gas cans, so we can mix them for the saws and stuff like that.
okay. And you've only spent 1,000 before in the past. Do you anticipate needing the 3,000 or?
Some of the, in the past, some of the propane bills have been paid for by the town. We've not, this year, we're very fortunate, we haven't used a lot of propane with the generators. So that's what it's there for. Both stations are fed on propane generators in the event of a power loss.
Okay. So if we do lose power for a while, that's
So if we
that's
lose
what
power,
that's there
they
for.
get fired right up.
Okay. What's that?
Terrific.
Thanks.
Further questions anywhere on the board here? Any comments, Chief?
No, just like to thank you guys for your support.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you for all that you do for our town, and thank all the
Welcome.
boys back in the stations. Easy this year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we're trying for.
that's good.
We do all the work up front. Thank you, John. Chief Lewandowski is, where's Julie had it, he was introduced earlier this evening, he's part of our police force. His wife is also, down there at the police station, being the only administrator right now, and working like an octopus down